Welcome everyone to the December 1st reorganization meeting of the Laurel School Board. Call to order for the meeting. Please stand for the flag salute. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moment of silence. Thank you. Mr. Mangino will be doing the oath of office for Mr. Tim Redfoot. Welcome, Mr. Wood.
So in front of you, you should have the written oath, and actually the two new members and the two returning members have the oath in front of them as well. So with regard to Mr. Kuth and Mr. Redfoot, if you want to stand and raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity. Congratulations, and please sign your oath.
The re-elected members have to do the same thing.
They just need to sign their oaths.
You're in the right spot. Oh, sorry.
Thanks.
Ms. Conrad, will you please do roll call?
Mr. Dix.
Here.
Mrs. Ensco. Here. Mr. Hammerson.
Here.
Mr. Kirkwood.
Here.
Mr. Cook.
Here.
Mr. McGee.
Here.
Mr. Nimmo.
Here.
Mr. Parker.
Here.
Mr. Redfoot.
Here. Item 2 on the agenda, the election of temporary president.
I nominate Bobby Dix.
Second. Oh, you don't have to.
Yeah, that's right. Nomination for the Dick. Yes, sir. Do we have any other nomination? Nominations are closed. Can I get a motion to close nomination?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Redfoot, second by Mr. Kirkwood. Says roll call vote.
Yes.
This is a vote to close nominations for temporary president. Mr. Dix.
Yes.
Mrs. Ensco. Yes. Mr. Hammerschmidt.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Kirkwood.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Nimmo.
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes.
Mr. Redfoot.
Yes.
Your motion carries.
Motion carries. Item number 3, the election of president of the board.
Okay, so at this point, yeah, Mr. Dix will take over the meeting and call for nominations for president of the board.
Recommended action. Temporary president calls for nominations for the office of president of the board from the list of all legally elected and appointed qualified members of the board.
I nominate Jim McGee, president.
Second.
Make a motion, we close nominations for president of the board.
Second.
Call for the vote.
Can we call for the vote?
This is the vote for closing the nominations for president. Mrs. Ensko,
Yes.
Mr. Hammerschmidt,
Yes.
Mr. Kirkwood,
Yes.
Mr. Coon.
Yes.
Mr. McGee,
Yes.
Mr. Nimmo,
Yes.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Redfoot.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, now call for the election of the board president.
Down at C, election of the board, election of the president of the board.
There a motion?
I make a motion.
Second.
We need the roll call vote for that.
This is a motion for president.
So to be clear, the recommended action, motion by Corey Ensko, second by Jeff Hammerschmidt for Jim McGee as president of the board. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Hammerschmidt,
Yes.
Mr. Kirkwood,
Yes.
Mr. Coon,
Yes.
Mr. McGee,
Wait.
Mr. Nimmo,
Yes.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Redfoot,
Yes.
Mr. Dix,
Yes.
and Mrs. Ensko.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we're on to number four.
So now it's back to the president.
Take
We're
it.
done.
Okay.
You're done with your duties.
Great job. Congratulations. Now you know what, Mrs. Harris felt.
All right,
You were president for that long.
that works. Item number four, election of a vice president of the board. President calls for nominations for the office of vice president.
I nominate Tim Redfoot.
Second.
I nominate Jeff Hammerschmidt.
Second.
To be clear, thank you for the seconds, but nominations don't need a second.
Correct.
So we'll only record who made the nomination. So we had Tim Redfoot by Lance Limo for clarification. And we had Jeff Hammerschmidt. President McGee, was that by Mr. Kirkwood?
I make a motion to close.
I will second that motion.
Who you recognize in 2 seconds?
Yes, you can recognize the Lance.
No, I thought you made it. Oh, Mike made the motion.
Right.
Motion to close nominations for vice president. Mr. Kirkwood,
Yes.
Mr. Coon,
Yes.
Mr. McGee,
Yes.
Mr. Nimmo,
Yes.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Redfoot,
Yes.
Mr. Dix,
Yes.
Mrs. Ensko,
Yes.
Mr. Hammerschmidt.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We will now move to the election of vice president of the board. Can I get a motion?
So move. Second.
Motion by Mr. Nimmo. Second by Mr. Hammerschmidt.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but as an order of procedure, since Mr. Redfoot is nominated first, would not this board vote on him first? It doesn't become you either pick one name or the other, correct, sir?
Right, you go through both names and
So-
whoever gets the most votes.
Point of clarification, you're going to vote twice, assuming that there's a first and a second on Mr. Hammerschmidt. When you said there's a motion for vice president,
Vote for vice president.
right, so that, the first and the second will be for Mr. Redfoot, is that accurate?
Well, I think what we're gonna do is a roll call
Right.
for each one.
Okay.
So Mr. Redfoot was nominated first, so we'll do a roll call for Mr. Redfoot.
How do we record who is the first and who is the second, right? Because it says clearly here that we need a motion and a second for each.
Well, I would,
Or for what, or
I
for
could do
just this
that.
action.
Couldn't you
Yeah.
just put
We just
for
need
Tim
a-
and Jeff as vice president?
We just need a motion to vote
then it's being split.
Right.
There's two roll call
Yeah,
votes.
we're voting on, we need it to call for the election. Someone makes a motion,
We
we
have
need a
that,
second.
we have that,
Then we need to have 2 roll calls.
correct.
And I would suggest that Mr. Redfoot's roll call is first because he was nominated first. And then go through and Mr. Hammerschmidt. Go through a roll call with Mr. Hammerschmidt.
Understood. So we'll call for a roll call vote. This will be to vote for Mr. Redfoot for the position of vice president.
Mr. Booth,
Yes.
Mr. McGee,
Yes.
Mr. Nimmo,
Yes.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Redfoot,
Yes.
Mr. Dix,
No.
Mrs. Ensko,
Yes.
Mr. Hammerschmidt,
No.
Mr. Kirkwood.
No.
Motion carries.
What, 6-3?
6-3 for Mr.
Yeah.
Redfoot.
Right.
The roll call for Mr. Hammerschmidt as vice president. Mr. Dix,
Yes.
Mrs. Ensko,
Yes.
Mr. Hammerschmidt,
Yes.
Mr. Booth,
Yes.
Mr. Kirkwood,
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Nimmo,
Point of clarification.
Yeah.
I'm curious. You have to vote.
Yeah, we're going to vote for as many people yes as we want. We went through it last year.
Yeah. So what happens when everybody votes yes?
Well, I mean, right now, Mr. Redfoot has 6-3 yes. If there's 7-2 yes for Mr. Hammerschmidt, then Mr. Hammerschmidt's the vice president of the board.
This one I'm biased, I can change it next to it.
Yes.
Mr. Nimmo,
No.
Mr. Parker,
No.
Mr. Redfoot.
No.
6-3 as well.
Anybody got a quarter?
Right, so you ought to go on.
We do another, now that it's froze, do we do another set of roll call, another time through?
Well, you
I don't
should.
know that, I mean, I'm not sure that maybe everybody was on the same page that.
Well, so I think what you're gonna have to do is go through the whole process again. So there'll have to be nominations for the position, because right now we have a tie in those that's set aside. So
Okay,
we have to have nominations.
I nominate Tim Redfoot for vice president.
I nominate Jeff Hammerschmidt.
Is there a second?
Need one for the nomination.
Oh, not from the nomination.
So correct me if I'm wrong. Are you going all the way back to nominations?
Nominations for vice president.
Okay, because theoretically, we had 2, but someone could nominate now Lance, or someone could nominate now Court.
Right. Yeah, there could be more nominations.
So I want to be clear, we're not re-voting on 2 previous nominations.
So-
We're gonna have 2 new nominations, even if they're the same people, and then we're going to have votes on those nominations.
So what we need to do is we have 2 nominations so far. If there's not another nomination, then we need a motion to close the nominations with the second and then move on from there.
Make a motion. Hold on. Let's crawl, walk, run. Do you have the 2 nominees and who nominated them for this soon-to-be second round of vote? You have that.
We do.
Could you read that back?
Sure. Mr. Redfoot by Lance Nimmo and Mr. Hammerschmidt by Mr. Kirk.
Okay.
Is that correct?
That's right.
Mhm.
I will need a motion to close.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Kirkwood, second by Ms. Ensko. Now, can I have a motion for the election of vice president?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Kirkwood,
Second.
second by Mr. Hammerschmidt.
We'll need a roll call vote again.
So again, this will be for Tim Redfoot as vice president. Jen, will you please do a roll call?
Mr. Rick. Vice President, Mr. Rick.
Correct.
Mrs. Ensko. Yes. Mr. Hammerschmidt.
No.
Mr. Kirkwood.
No.
Mr. Coon.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Nimmo.
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes.
Mr. Redfoot.
Yes.
And Mr. Dix.
No.
7 to 2. Mr. Redfoot.
Wait,
Wait.
but I thought it was 7-3.
We only have
I mean,
none.
6-3, 6-3.
I have Mr. Hammerschmidt, Mr. Kirkwood as no's. Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
Mr. Dix.
I'm sorry. I can't count. 6 to 3 again. I apologize. Okay. The next roll call is Mr. Hammerschmidt, Vice President. Mr. Hammerschmidt, sorry, you're up first.
Yes.
Mr. Kirkwood,
Yes.
Mr. Coop,
No.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Nimmo,
No.
Mr. Parker,
No.
Mr. Redfoot,
No.
Mr. Dix,
Yes.
and Mrs. Ensign.
Yes.
So 5 to 4 for Mr. Hammerschmidt.
So Mr. Redfoot is the new vice president.
Congratulations.
Wasn't sure. I was trying to count votes. It was less than.
All right, item number 5, meeting dates. Jen provided that in the back of the packet here for everyone. Can I get a motion for the meeting dates for this coming?
No move.
Motion by Mr. Kirkwood,
Second.
second by Mr. Dix. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Item number 6, appointments. Designation of the board president of the school director to serve in the following positions for year 2022. PSBA liaison representative. Justin, are you okay with doing it again?
That's not a problem. Thank you.
Kirkwood? You now sitting like great. Representative for the LCTC, Mr. Hammerschmidt. Yes. Care to do that?
Yes. Thank you.
And we need a backup for Mr. Hammerschmidt. Is anyone interested in that?
I can be one of the others.
Okay. Mr. Kirkwood is one alternate. We still need one more.
I'll do that.
Mr. Kirkwood, primary, Mr. Dix, secondary. Let the record reflect that at the discretion of the president of the board, any and all standing or ad hoc committees, appointments, including the position of chair, may be made and will be recorded after said appointment. For everybody on the board, if there's a certain committee you would like to be on, please let me know. I'll try to adjust and move those around so we can get people where they feel most at home. Item number 7, adjournment of the reorg meeting.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kirkwood, second by Ms. Hensfield. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried.